Hey cuties, I'm Miles Sexton, a content creator, activist, and loud and proud disruptor of the norm. On our private bits, we talk about the things and people that don't get talked about enough, or at all. Trust me, as a sober, HIV positive, non-binary person, I would know. Join me as I chat with people in my life and from around the world whose stories deserve to be heard. Maybe you'll learn something new and you will definitely LOL. Our Private Bits is also part of the Acast Curator Network. All right, cuties. Today on Our Private Bits, we have Kyle Pretzlaff joining us. Kyle is a body positivity content creator who serves all of these gorgeous streetwear and accessible fashion looks on TikTok and Instagram, while also challenging the male beauty standards. Want to say hi, Kyle?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Sorry, I rewrote your bio a little bit.
I was like, you made it stunning. I was like,
thanks.
here's this garbage can of an intro, and you made it great.
No, I was like, I needed to add the Our Private Bits
Please
flair.
do.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I knew you would. I left room to edit.
I always use the bios as just like also to help me like try to like gear other questions or like learn something new about someone that I don't know. That's why I usually ask for it. So.
It's a guideline.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited that you are joining me today. I feel like we've sort of like weaved in and out of each other's lives, I guess, like over the years, you know, and you've known me from my other life and cosmetics, which is like so interesting. But yeah, I'm super excited to just like also to get to know you, I think, on another level today that we haven't really had the opportunity to chat. But so thanks for joining me.
Of course. Yeah, it's been a weird almost 10 years, I want to say, that we've like
literally
been in and out.
Because what was the first time, I guess, like we would have gotten connected? Do you remember?
Like the first time?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to throw out a random date. I don't think I'm correct. Probably like 2016, 2015 KVD event, West Edmonton Mall.
Yeah.
Like, that's the timeline. Yeah. I don't know if that's like the right year ballpark, but like.
Because what were you doing at that Sephora at that time?
That I just started as one of the like assistant manager spots. And that was like probably week 1 for me.
Bananas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild.
How we've blossomed since.
Yeah. The gentle Alberta beginning.
You know, I feel like there's something about retail that just like, you know, it teaches you a lot of things.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know, and like I feel like I couldn't do what I do now without that sort of like experience that I went through. I don't know if you feel the same.
No, I feel absolutely the same way. And like both like as a person, I think retail like defined me incredibly. Like that was, I was a retail like junior high worker. So like people either went retail or they went to like restaurants. I did retail. And I feel like fundamentally developed like who I am. But now in the industry too, like working in fashion or working things like I'm all about the retail calendar. Like Q4's coming. I'm like, here's this. Here's where brands have budget. Here's where this like it's helped me really line up in a weird way that is I don't think I'd be successful if I didn't.
Absolutely. I feel like it's like going to business school in many ways, right?
Yeah, like, I would like to thank Old Navy in 2011 for starting my career is what we're really.
Okay, Old Navy, lock in a partnership. Let's
Shout out Old Navy.
Yeah. Do you think though that like in working in retail, like and being around so much fashion and like, you know, working in the beauty space, did that like at all like inspire you to like want to get into what you do and what you share on social media?
I would like now in a really roundabout way, I could connect the dots and somehow be like, oh, that's where it happened. It didn't really go that way. Like, I guess I first started to way back when and as doing like special effects makeup in TV was my like initial start. So I was not in like the fashion space, not in the beauty space. I knew like eyeshadow functionally, but I didn't know how to like do it at the time. It was a whole different world. Whole different world. And I've kind of like worked backwards from there. So I think now I've kind of connected those dots on like how it inspired me. But like the person who started in makeup was definitely not inspiring.
Wasn't a fashion girly at the time?
No. It was a whole different life for sure.
Okay. That's interesting.
I'll pull up some photos later and you'll be like, I got it.
Hey, trust. I had many eras when I look back on my Facebook that loves to remind me, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. I would have been closer to like workshop construction worker energy, which like, okay. Well, we're never mind. I take it all back.
Hey, it's like it's reimagined.
Yeah.
A little bit more queer.
Yeah. But started in a different place.
I love it. So I guess like back on your sort of journey of like I guess getting to the person that you are now, like,
Yeah.
did you feel there was like a lack of representation, like within fashion, within beauty, like, like
Yeah.
what inspired you to like put yourself out there in this
Yeah.
way?
It that is really what started this whole journey. But it wasn't really my like goal. I wasn't super into fashion. I wasn't super into beauty.
Hmm.
I also wasn't super marginalized back in the time too. Like I was very skinny. I was small.
Hmm.
I just wasn't into fashion. So I could have been more into fashion easier
Yes.
back then. And it was during the pandemic when I just like gained weight, my body changed. We're
Hmm.
getting into like our mid 20s and like my body went from one thing to another thing just like very quickly. And I was
Yes.
like, I need to figure this out.
Yeah.
So it was with that I was like, oh, there's no options. Like I took for granted the going to like walk into an H&M, finding something that was
Hmm.
okay for
Yes.
maybe $30. And now that's not like an option. And like I'm not that big of a
Totally.
person, which is a really like, big highlight of the issue of like, if I can't do it, what are so many other people doing?
Because
Um,
what would you say are like your general sizes, just so
yeah,
people like
of
can
course.
understand?
It's kind of a mix. And again, I think things are shifting so fast that sizing's a little wonkadoodle
Yeah,
currently. But like
totally.
2XL is kind of my standard like top and like bottom size when we're talking like sweatpants, things like that.
Hmm.
Waist is about like a 44, but then
Hmm.
I tried on a ton of 44s and I was like, I need like a 48. So like
Okay.
I don't know, but that
Yeah,
doesn't measure necessarily like to what the measuring tape is saying. So somewhere around like, yeah, 44, 2XL
totally.
clothing.
Which is
Yeah,
again
ballpark,
not that big.
which is and like for so many brands, 2XL is accessible, but then they stop there.
Hmm.
So I'm either on like the small size of like I'm putting it on this thing that's supposed to be a 2XL and it's not. Or they just don't make my size. Like it's just not available. So yeah, most stores kind of cut off at like a 42 pant. Sometimes they range up to a 44, maybe if I'm lucky, like in stores.
Wow.
And then 2XL is kind of the top of the size range. So I can wear a lot of, excuse me, I can wear a lot of tops and stuff pretty easily, but also like oversized is cute now, which is just kind of
Yeah,
like not an option for me because so many brands just, they don't keep going.
totally.
So it was from there that while I was just teaching myself how to get dressed, and I'm like, I need to figure this out. I'm sure someone else needs to figure it out.
Hmm.
So I just recorded it, and that's really what took it off. So it was fully a selfish endeavor that then has helped other people. So like I'm stoked. But yeah, it was just learning my own body and trying to find anything to wear.
But I think it was so cool because like I mean I think like we had each other on Instagram for such a long
Yeah.
time, and so to like just to watch how much you just like exploded, and I was just
Yeah.
so excited and happy, and like you said, I don't think that it was necessarily like intentional at the beginning, but it was like
Yeah.
it just made me so happy to see someone like you living in joy and just like representing who they are and like what their body
Yeah.
looks like, because we're both from the queer community,
Mhm.
and there is so much fat phobia
Yeah.
that exists, and I don't know if you resonate with that word or not. If
For
you
sure.
don't,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
if
No, you're clear.
sorry, but like there, I think a lot of people who
Yeah.
are body positive are like trying to embrace that word. So I should have asked you
100%.
first,
No, you're
but
good.
like the there is just it's unfortunate that there is so much of this like shame and stigma that exists, and
Mhm.
it's just like, so seeing you being putting out there, I think is like, I'm hope I like to think that you must get so many messages of people like reaching out to you and like
Yeah.
saying how confident you are, and like I don't know, has it been like a really positive response? Like,
It's so largely positive, and I
yeah,
would say probably like 80% positive, little bit of
yeah,
a mixed reaction, and
for
then
sure,
like very little negative, but like it's the internet, so like it's always out there. But so much
totally.
positive reaction, and I think a big part of what I bring to the table that's I think different from a lot of fashion creators currently is
Hmm.
I'm kind of bridging the gap between the people who don't identify as fashionable
Hmm.
and making it easy for them. So like
Totally.
my audience is like a ton of Midwest straight dads.
Yes.
Love you, straight dads.
Yeah.
Um, we
Same.
keep it coming. The gyms. So like that's a huge part of my audience, and they're just like they're so stoked when they're like, oh my god, I never thought I could put my flannel over my hoodie and like fashion.
Yeah,
Like
it's
they've
like
done
teaching
it.
them how to wear, like not just wear something, but how to style it.
Yeah,
You
and I
know?
think it's brought so much like confidence to people, especially in the men's space where like body positivity is kind of still new and it's
Hmm.
still like being developed and the fashion industry is still like catching up to the body standards. And
Totally.
I think I'm kind of the first like breaking point into someone's fashion journey when they're like,
Yes.
oh, this person can do it. Maybe I can do more than a t-shirt. And I think that's been really exciting. So
Yeah.
tons of positive comments and DMs of just like, I think just opening people's eyes to the
Mm-hmm.
possibility of being stoked about their body, or like, again, neutral about their body is kind of my like goal.
Totally. So like you're mentioning that like, that you're getting like the Midwest dads or
Mhm.
whatever. So are you like I guess are you afraid in any way to like show more of your queerness because there is like more of like a straight following or like I don't know if that's actually
Yeah,
true,
no,
but
it's a
like
super great question. And it's very like, it's a big part of why I don't think I do more
yeah.
than I do as far as in the queer space.
Mhm.
I do also identify like fully bisexual to this day.
Okay, love it. I didn't
Which
know that
is,
about you.
yeah, that's it just kind of like, I've always just as a person, both like growing up circumstance and now
Mhm.
circumstance with the internet and my audience, but I've always led with just like myself first, and anything else that identifies is kind of like the afterthought. It's just
Mhm.
like, and this and this and this. So I've never really like fully shouted out loud like gay, bi, like
Yeah.
whatever. I've never came out to really anyone, including
Love
my
it.
family. I just kind of like,
Just
it
been
was like
living.
brought up with, I was like bringing a date, and then like
Yes.
a dude walks in and they're like, got it. Like that was
Yeah.
that's my exposure point. So it's definitely something that I also keep semi private
Mhm.
for that audience. And like,
Yeah.
it is part of my audience doesn't necessarily want that, and not in a way where I'm afraid to express it, but
Mhm.
like I do kind of have an audience for fashion, the body positivity.
Yeah.
They're maybe not here for like the other things. And that's the same with like, I don't know, I paint a lot in my free time, but
Mhm.
that's not something I
Totally.
necessarily like showcase on the internet because this is not really what I'm using my platform for currently. So a
Totally.
little bit of a solid mix of all those pieces. But I think, yeah, a lot of my audience isn't necessarily like ready to jump into more conversations. We're like starting baby steps with like fashion.
But I also think it's like, I think as creators, I think a lot of the time I think we need to like look at like what we're doing as an onion and I
Yeah,
don't think that you can like give all of yourself all
totally.
at once. And it's like it takes time and you need to like you start building your following and like, you share the outer part of the onion and like, every year you peel back and you
Hmm.
let them into more and
Totally.
and I very much have like done that the same way with my type of with my following too, like it was like mine was just fashion and
Yeah.
beauty at the beginning, but it's like, and now we've sort of like fell into this like advocacy sort of piece, but
Yeah.
absolutely it's not I don't think it necessarily means about hiding. It's like, it's like also like you're
Yeah.
building trust, I think too, like with the people that
Yes.
are following you too.
Yeah.
So
I think when it comes time, it'll be an easy like reveal, or like it comes up every once in a while. Like it's not necessarily
no, and you
a
do
main
post with
focus.
your partner
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes. So like it's not like it doesn't
Yes.
exist. So
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like, if you dig, it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, "No, it's not his
It's
brother."
gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Roommates.
Yeah.
Even a lot actually. Like the other day, we were at an event together. Um, we also have like we work together. We're entangled a lot as far
Yes,
as like professional. You know the deal, how that goes with
totally.
like it all intertwines at some point. And there's like, oh, like how long have you been working together? And we're like, 2 years.
Yeah.
That's it. Good enough.
It's true.
Yeah.
But I feel like because you're also, like, you're both, like, so passing,
Yes.
right? So, like, I think just people just don't
100%.
assume, right?
Yeah, it's not necessarily the first thought.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Too cute. So, okay. So before your partner,
Mhm.
what like, I guess, like, what has, like so you've been together for 3 years, you said,
Yeah,
right?
two and a
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So was this is your first, like, major relationship or, like, have you had other relationships in the past, like, longer term ones?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I've been like my last relationship was also like a 6 year
Okay.
something. So like substantial. There's
Okay.
not been a lot of like really trial and error when it came to dating. Like it
Yeah.
was very just like the world kind of was like, here,
There you
and then it
go.
stuck for years. So
Okay.
it's been good. There wasn't a ton that way, but even just like making friendships or like trying to network in like the queer space, I think is
Mhm.
so close to dating
Totally,
all
it
the
is.
time.
Yes. It's so true.
Yeah. So like there's times where, you know, making friends is different. And I think a lot of times when you're trying to like approach someone, it's the same rules of dating sometimes. Like they don't, you have to kind of, you know, fit the standard that they're looking for, and like friendships, especially in
Mm,
like the queer community. So I think even like my dating has been pretty cut and dry. Like there's not
yeah.
too much points in the middle, but I think friendships is, or like networking has been just as much of like a
Yeah.
dating struggle.
I can see that. Did you like, I guess like, so if you were in more longer term relationships, like do you
Yeah.
feel like you've had the opportunity to like discover, I guess, like what you enjoy sexually, or
Mhm.
like, you know, that sort of piece in your life so far?
He, so here's another like, we haven't talked about it.
Yeah.
So much learning. Love this podcast. Education Network. Um, I am super like comfortable intimately. Like
Yes.
I'm a cuddler. I'm like a whatever. But that's like I could be good.
Yeah, okay.
Like a good cuddle. I'm like, okay, great. That was great. Good
Totally.
night. Like that's the end. And then like there was a while where I was kind of self-identifying more asexual. I don't
Mhm.
know if that necessarily resonates currently to like where it is,
Totally.
but like somewhere between not super sexual
Mhm.
and definitely more of like an emotional and like different kind of physical connection is like
I love it.
where it's at. So like exploring that's been kind of easy because
Mhm.
you can do that in so many ways. And I've learned
Totally.
like, you know, what's a no, what's a yeah, as far as like my physical comfort level, both with like, you know, friends, experiences,
Yes.
colleagues, like it can really bridge that gap for me. So I think I've learned a lot that way, but there's so many things like sexually and in the sex world that I'm still like so strange to, where I'm
Okay.
like, I'm learning every day. I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. So it's
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of one of those I get to learn almost from like a third party perspective where I'm
Mhm.
like, you know, I could take notes, interested, but I'm like, I don't need that.
Totally.
So there's been definitely like exploring in different ways and like figuring myself out. But I think like, yeah, as far as like hookup culture, like multiple partners, like I'm definitely fresh and not experienced, but it's not necessarily something I feel like I'm like lacking in. Like I feel
Totally.
like I got the boxes checked on what.
And I think that's like a really interesting point, because I think
Yeah.
that there is a lot of like societal pressure, especially like within like our you know, umbrella of a community of like, oh, you
Hmm.
know, like it's like you need to go out there and be a slut,
Yeah.
you know, and like that doesn't have to be for everyone, you
Yeah.
know, and I don't think that that's like that, you know, that is the one singular path that we all need to take, you know.
Totally.
I think like, you know, for like you, even for a large portion of like my young, you know, my younger, like, you know, my early 20s and stuff, it's like I really did go from like relationship to relationship. I wasn't like, I just, that was like what felt safe and what felt
Hmm.
comfortable for me to like figure that out. I think like
Yeah.
within that sort of like longer term relationship versus like me hooking up, like hooking up for me like came later in my 20s,
Yeah.
you know, when I was going through things, you know, that's sort of like where I experienced it. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's like it is. I think it's important to like recognize that there is other pathways. And to your point too, I think going to and being like, oh, like, am I asexual? You know, and like I guess like what was that
Yeah.
conversation like with yourself? Like, you know, how did that come up? I guess.
Yeah. I think it was one of those things that like I had to realize that other people were experiencing something that I wasn't.
Yes.
And there was just so many times of like not even trying it physically, but
Hmm.
just like trying it like mentally or emotionally, like putting myself in that circumstance where like people, you know, in your young teens, everyone's like, oh, I had this like celebrity crush on this person. I'm like, it just wasn't there. So I was
Totally.
clearly missing something that other people were experiencing. So I kind of was like, what is that gap that I'm like not experiencing? So I
Yeah.
kind of just had to figure it out that way. So it's kind of through like a reverse, I guess, process. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't me trying something and I'm like, ooh, I'm not into this, but it was like, ooh, something's I'm missing out. Like someone's
Yeah.
everyone else is doing something different. And like,
Yeah. But I'm sure
yeah,
like, was there like, 'cause you said like cuddling is a way that like, you
yeah.
know, you get intimacy. Was there other like other like moments where like you felt like you were getting that intimacy outside of just like cuddling?
Yeah, I think even just like I've talked about this too as far as like relationship types and like open relationships and
Yes.
stuff. And it's like I'm comfortable with that concept of like an open relationship and
Mhm.
super flexible. But my version of an open relationship, I think would look like going on first dates
Yes.
or like, you know, like flirting online and then going on like a little walk,
Yeah.
like those sort of things. And then I'd be like, wow, great. I'm done for
Yeah.
woo.
I
Yeah.
need a cigarette,
Yeah.
you
Just
know?
like lay on the side of the bed and
Yeah.
this. Yeah. Yeah. That's 100% kind of where that is for me. So it is very much like a emotional and romantic kind of like connection
Totally.
base, um more so than it is like an actual physical need, I guess. And
Yes.
like I think where I draw those like differentiators for myself as far as like asexuality versus kind of where I am currently is
Mhm.
those experiences are super still like part of a relationship or
Yes.
meeting someone. So it's like there's parts where I absolutely will do it or I'll engage in certain things and
Mhm.
I'm like, great, nailed it. Or like I can recognize and like, oh, that was hot. Like
Yeah.
what just happened there?
Yeah.
That was a sexy thing, but it doesn't necessarily feel the way that I think a lot of other people experience that
Mhm.
like feeling. So
No, I
yeah.
honestly, I feel like I'm learning too as I'm sitting here with you 'cause
Yeah.
and because I think also there's, like, such like, it's like, I think a lot of people think that intimacy only comes through sex, and I think and with Sarah, the
Mhm.
Birds of Pio, we were talking about this
Yeah.
today as well, like, it's like, no, like, sex is not the only way to get intimacy and
Mhm.
share intimacy, like, with a partner, with someone else, like, there are so many other, like, avenues that you can,
Yeah.
like, do that, and, like, what is, like, true intimacy versus, like, just, like, dopamine, you
Yeah.
know?
And I think like as a society too, like if I'm thinking of any TV show I've watched, it's always marriage problems because they're not sleeping
Yeah.
together or like,
Uh,
oh, they're in separate beds. Like I think a
I
lot
hate it.
of, you know, TV and culture and all these things are based around like actual just like sexual parameters. And I
Mhm.
think there's so many more things that make a relationship or a partnership or any sort of connection like work versus like just sexual problems. And I think
Yeah,
that's such like the quick, like, that's the first assumption a lot of people make, which is kind of where it's like, I think there's so many more things to explore, and I think that's part of,
totally.
like, that issue of, you know, connecting those dots between, like, the sex and then versus something like just, like, connecting and working and intimacy and, like,
Yes.
feelings that way.
It's so true, so true. So, I guess, like, you know, a lot of the time,
Yeah.
like, disclosure is a word that I feel like I have to use a lot in my life, a lot of us have to use in our life a lot. Like,
Yeah.
do you feel the need that you need to, like, disclose this about yourself, like, to your partners, like, before you start dating them? Like, how have you navigated that?
It's a big part of it, I think,
Yeah.
too, especially when, like, hookup like, when I do have, like, same sex or different variations of, like,
Mhm.
partnerships, the kind of vibe is, like, hookup like,
Yes.
that's where it starts, and
Totally.
you're like, "Does it work?" Whereas when I have, like, same or, like, opposite sex relationships, like, when
Mhm.
it's more of a classical romance
Yes.
feeling, you can kind of get a few steps further before you're having sex,
Mhm.
is
Totally.
kind of my
So true.
experience, especially along, like, the timelines of when I was dating or out or having those experiences, but
Yeah.
so I think in terms of, like, hookup culture, it's hard because then it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're not into me, like, you didn't wanna hook up first night." Like, that's sort of where the
Totally.
first barrier happens, so it is, like,
Yeah.
one of those things of, like, "Hey, I would love to meet you, but, like, I'm not really into this thing tonight, so, like, hope it's okay." Like, there is that element of, like, you know, disclosing that part of me
Yeah.
for the potential of feelings or the
Mhm.
potential of what could be, just so it's not, like, seen as a negative in the moment. Because I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest, like, hurdle I've experienced in that.
Do you feel like you have to, like, kind of hold everyone's hand, like, in that situation? So, like, even though it's like you're doing it, to protect yourself, it's like you then have to, like, kinda coddle the other person,
Oh,
like
yeah,
yeah.
100%. Being like, "This is okay. Your
Yeah.
feelings are valid. I like you." Like,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's like, there's definitely those little baby steps you have to take with someone when you're explaining it, especially because it's not everyone's experience, and I don't expect it to be, especially because again, like, I'm not necessarily having those feelings, but I know how much other people are. So it's
Yeah.
like, I really have to kind of like, you know, weave through those expectations and like
Totally.
slow baby steps through what it's
But
what
it
we're
must get
experiencing.
exhausting sometimes, no?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think that must take a lot of you, like,
Yeah.
especially, like, when you're single and, like, on, I don't know if you've used dating apps or not, but
Mhm.
like I can't imagine trying to navigate, well, I can't imagine because I have to like tell people that
Yeah,
I
yeah,
need to
yeah.
be positive and
Of
I have to
course.
like, so it's, similar disclosure levels of like having to educate people, but
Totally. Yeah,
different.
different circumstances,
Yeah,
absolutely, but I think the same level of, like, you can't just say, "Hey, let's go do this thing." You have
totally.
to say, like, "Hey, here's 4 things.
Yes.
Now are you interested?" Like, there's
Yeah,
that level of you like, the bypass level first.
totally. So true. Ah,
Yeah.
so cool. So now, like going back a little bit to
Mhm.
like your body positivity and like
Yeah.
getting to this place of like where like was it something that you've always been really comfortable like in your body and your body's journey or like was there like a moment that you sort of like fell into not fell into this but like I don't know grew into this sort of like
Yeah.
person like I'm curious about that.
No, it's definitely recent for
Okay.
sure, and it's a part of this journey I've had almost out of, like, the necessity to do it. Like, I was skinny my whole life. I was quite, like, thin. I think with this TikTok, I hate bringing up TikTok, but, like, have
Yeah.
you seen this TikTok?
Yeah.
Where this, like, 14-year-old boy is like, "There is nothing worse in the world than being skinny fat." Like, and then there's a
Ugh,
bunch of people with, like, clearly worse situations being like, but
totally.
that was absolutely my life, like, in my head growing up until at least, like, my, late 20s, I was
Mhm.
like, "There's nothing worse than, like, having this body." Like, that was
Yeah.
the worst. Or, like, going to gym class and everyone's, like, muscular or whatever, and I'm just,
Mhm.
like, skinny awkward. I was
Totally.
like, this is the worst thing that could ever happen. Like, it was just so embarrassing to have those feelings in my
Mhm.
head that it was like, it stopped me from doing so many things.
Yeah.
Or like, I was also that kid who wore a shirt for the longest time in the pool or like going
Totally.
places. Like, it was just not something I was comfortable with, like showing my body in any way. Whereas now it's like out all the
All the
time, literally
time.
all the time.
Titties out.
100%. Like, and it really did happen through this like discovery of learning fashion in my body and
Mhm.
just like getting to a point where I'm like, why am I spending so much time worrying about it? And it was literally like a day of change where I'm like, I could be worried about my body changing, or I could like go do this other thing.
Yes.
And that was the moment where I was like, I'm gonna go do the other thing. And it's just from there, I really tried to work on, I think like body neutrality is kind of my firm stance at the moment, where
Yeah.
like, I'm not passionate about flossing. I don't
Yeah.
love flossing. I'm not like a floss advocate, but I do it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it goes. So I think the same can be true for my body, where it's like,
Mhm.
I don't have to love it every single day. I don't have to think it's like
Totally.
the best thing in the world, which I think is the
Yeah, it's like
perspective
toxic
of
toxic joy,
a hundred
like
percent. And so it's
yeah.
like, if I can just wake up and be like fine with it,
Yeah.
that's great. And
Totally.
that's really what kind of started this whole like journey for me, or like showing my body. Cause if someone's like, oh, I don't like it, it's like that girl, same. Like
Yeah.
what and and what? Like it's still getting me, place to place or doing what it needs to do. And like that's perfectly fine by me. So I think that's kind of what
Absolutely.
kicked off the whole experience for me of just like trying to not let it get in the way. And now it's going to the other side of like teaching people that like you can gain weight or have a certain body and like
Totally.
and
It's a journey,
yeah.
it's like not leading with shame,
Yeah.
it's like just leading I think it's leading with joy. I think it's like
Yeah.
just leading with the authenticity, like I don't think there is so much shame that exists in our
Hmm.
society that like tells us that we need to be this like cookie cutter sort of size and
Yes.
yeah, it's like no, fuck that.
Yeah.
Like we need to get away I think from that and just recognize that I think that like we live in a really beautifully diverse world, but like
Hmm.
only like a very small percentage was shown to the like mass population for such a long
Yes.
time even though like all different body shapes have existed,
Hmm.
and even wherever you travel in the world, like genetically, like people, like there is such diversity within it, and I think it's just I'm so happy to see that like finally I'm seeing it so much more
Yes.
represented and like in mainstream medias, and it's
Hmm.
it's it's awesome to see, but I think it's interesting that it's happening a lot more in women
Yes.
versus men.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I applaud the women's space so much and anyone who's like female identifying, female presenting in like the body positive movement because
Hmm.
it's so hard, but they're making traction, which is so
Yes.
exciting to see. And like clothing is it's bad,
Yeah.
but it's starting to catch up. Or like, you know, the magazines are catching up and runways are catching up. Like there's little bits and pieces that
Yeah.
we're seeing, little glimmers of hope of all this work that people put into in like the female space, that it's like it's going and it's exciting. But I think there's so much still that hasn't moved in like the men's space yet.
But I think
And
it's so much worse in the men's space, to be
yeah.
honest. Like, yes, like there's still like so much room to grow. I don't think the women's space
Yeah.
is perfect in any way, but it's just like I think there is still this like this I don't know, a binary of like
Mhm.
what a man should look like,
Yes.
you know? And it's like, oh, it's
And
just brutal.
I think it goes, I think where I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think in the women's space, they're willing to talk about it and experience it.
Yes.
And even when it was bad, like in the 90s, we all knew it was bad, but they
Yeah.
were like, you might go along with it, but you're like, that's bad.
Totally.
Whereas
Totally.
no one's doing that really in like the men's space. It's like, hey, this is bad or negative, and like no one's talking about it. The like binary to be a man of like not talking about your feelings or not
Yes.
talking about your experience or just like not being proud of your body. That's just like
Mhm.
not part of what being a man is supposed to be. And so I think there is so much like roadblock right now where it's not progressing because it's just now getting talked about, or like people
Mhm.
are still like not wanting to talk about it as it like
Yeah.
progresses. So it is such a slower roll for all those kind of reasons, like yeah, bundled into one. And like again, there's so many incredible like plus size men's creators who are truly representing like the larger scope of plus size
Yes.
range, but there's like maybe 6 of them on TikTok, and like I can name
Totally.
all of them, I can point them, or like in
Yeah.
the fashion space I'm like, oh, there's that one again, like you go, but like you can still pinpoint the 10.
Mhm.
Whereas I think we need to get to a point where that like, you know, moves a little bit more, and hopefully more people are like joining in on that.
I mean, it's interesting because like I don't know. I'm like I like social media, obviously is
Mhm.
what I do for work, but I don't really
Yes.
spend I don't spend a lot of time on social media, but when I do, I'm like a bit of a creeper and I like
Mhm.
I don't know, I like to kind of like look and see what everyone's like doing, I guess. And it's interesting because I feel like when you started doing your videos, it was interesting how many other people that I don't know, they're just like within my circle or my
Mhm.
sphere started posting more
Right.
and it was like it made me so happy to see like and I don't know if it's like connected, but I feel like it was. I was like, I don't know, I feel like you really helped to encourage a lot of people, like especially locally, I think too, to just start like owning who they are. And
Thank
I think
you.
it was it was really, really cool
Yeah,
to see.
I don't know if I can fact check that, but like I'll appreciate and take
Yeah, I
it. So
don't
like
know.
thank
There's
you.
something there.
I
I
do think
think
it was
so.
definitely part of like I was at the starting point of it, whether it was me and a couple people, or but I think it was like there's some good traction once I started of yeah, seeing more people be more comfortable to post or talk about it. So like
Mhm.
thrilled to be in that like little space there.
I love it. Now, I mean, so with your partner,
Mhm.
too, like, did you get a lot of like support? 'Cause, you know, I think Darcy's also quite body positive as well, and like how like
Drake.
Drake. Sorry, oh
No,
my
it's all
god.
good. Different team. You're good.
I hope you didn't have an ex named Darcy.
No,
That'd be
didn't.
really
Yeah.
awkward.
Ugh.
With Drake,
Yeah.
was there a lot of like I guess like support there, or there just was like a comfortability? Like, yeah, I know you like you don't want to talk too much about your
No,
relationship,
it's
but
all good.
I from like an outside
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah. I think from like a work piece too, like there's again different bodies, different circumstance, but I think there's an immediate like camaraderie or understanding for the struggle, and especially how much more he has to work versus how much more I have to
Hmm.
work to find clothing still.
Totally.
And like brand partnerships, like I benefit greatly from like a trickle down effect
Yes.
because brands will really want to work with him because
Yes.
of his body type and his size.
Yeah.
They're like, ooh, that's different. And they don't make clothing for his size. So they're like, do you want Kyle instead? And I'm like, sure, I'll take it.
Okay.
Like that happens a couple times where
Yeah.
brands are really excited to like showcase their body positivity, or like, and they're like, ooh, our extended size range. We're like, that's neither of our sizes actually. But like, if you need one of us, like I'm closer to that than
Yeah.
so it's tough. But I think there's just kind of an understanding of where we're coming from and what we're doing. And we started content right at the same time too. Like
Oh,
it was
cool. I
kind
didn't
of
know that.
yeah, I filmed his first TikTok and then he kind of had the first spike and then I had a
Okay.
different spike, different journeys, different sort of like lanes as far as fashion. And,
Yes.
you know, he's more when it comes to like he'll advocate kind of for the bigger body, but it's not necessarily like the same body exposure that I have. So
Totally.
different lanes of the
Yeah, he's kind of
coin,
just
but
living his truth, you
yeah.
know, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
representation in
But yeah,
itself.
definitely like a big point of like understanding between the two of us and just like I get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have like
Yeah.
that type of support, you know? Like I think even within my own relationship, I think just Tyler being on going on his like transition and his
Hmm.
journey, you know, and like me being on my journey to becoming non-binary and transitioning into non-binary, it's like, you know, there's like a safety in that, you know, that
Yeah.
I really appreciated. And I felt like I was really able to like fully show up how I wanted because, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of the time in relationships for me in the past, like I still would like hide parts of myself or like
For sure.
I felt like I needed to look a certain way when I was like around my partner and like
Yeah.
with Tyler, I could just like totally relax, you
Yeah.
know, in that way and not feel that pressure, you
There's a
know?
little bit
So,
of like a built-in empathy cushion that
yeah,
you have for each other where it's like it's different, but like I got it. You can
totally.
be a little bit more honest about the little like nitty-gritty bits that to someone might seem stupid, but like they might get it a little faster.
Yeah,
So it's nice.
absolutely. Absolutely. So now with the world of like, you know, social media and
Hmm.
like navigating, because you're putting yourself out there so much, like, how do you navigate, I think, a lot of the negativity that I think comes with it because unfortunately I think now social media has become so opinionated and
Hmm.
you know I'm sure like yeah how do you how do you navigate like people telling you like horrible things all the time.
It's I think going back a little bit to like talking about those boundaries or like hiding, there's not necessarily things that I'm like hiding, but like because of so much negativity, there's things I put in place that I just like won't do.
Yeah,
And one of those things is like I won't eat on camera, which
yeah,
is so annoying. But it's one of the like I'll go to some great food events in Toronto. I'll go to these great restaurants that want to take photos and they're like, try the food. And it's like absolutely not on camera
yeah,
because me taking photos of it is okay. Me being in the restaurant is okay. But as soon as me, someone who's like bigger, is also eating, that's like everyone on the internet has an opinion about it.
like they'll be like what like
That's the times where it's like I get all the fat comments or like put
really
down the burger, like go to the gym, and it's like that's what really starts those like
interesting.
things. But like if I don't have me doing it, they're like, "Oh my god, where's that restaurant? Looks so good." Like it's just one of those things that for some reason as soon as those dots are connected, there's so many strong opinions.
Yeah,
It's the same with fashion too. Like I try not to do anything that's the whole trend, and I love the people who are creating it and the people who are making this type of content and like here's like the best way to wear this shirt or the
yeah,
the cool here's the way to do this or like the styling yes and no's.
totally,
I just as soon as I put myself in one of those positions where I'm creating like a this is how to do it,
yeah,
it's not about the fashion anymore, it's about my body. It's like,
totally,
well, you're like you should just lose weight instead, or like it's not the shirt styling wrong, like you're just fat. Like that's what
exactly.
really like triggers those. So I do for myself, like in content, trying to stay like it's not hiding, but like neutral about what I'm saying. Like I just
Yeah,
want to vibe. I just want to put on an outfit, and if people like it, sick. So
totally.
like I stay in that lane. Um, Negativity comes either way, and I just like part of me, depending on how late you comment, will get like a little snippy, but
Yeah,
then like delete it, block it, like it's out of my system. Like I've wrote a note to no one and then like threw it out.
fair.
But like I'm an avid blocker. My block list is long.
Same.
It's like not a concern to me. I'm just like boop, gone. But it's hard to just like put yourself in negativity. But I think at this point too, like I know when an ad gets pushed behind my stuff for someone like an
Yeah.
outside thing, I'm like,
Oh, totally.
I just like I know it's going bad, so I just don't even look at it. I'll like
Yeah.
turn off that notification. I'll let it live on the internet because it serves a purpose to someone,
Yeah.
whether it's like work or someone's gonna like still love it either way. But like those ones that I just like avoid because I know what comes back is such like a thing.
You go and read the comments.
Not really. It's
Yeah.
hard because and like this is just like a nitpicky thing, but they all lump together now. So like
Yes.
you'll see like comments and then it'll just like show you them.
Yeah.
So if I see it, I see it. But there's so much love and positivity in it that it's annoying sometimes to ignore. But I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna not dive into those.
Totally.
So if
I,
it's small, like I have stuff that gets like 10 comments, so of course I'll read them
yeah.
and I'll be like, thanks. But like,
Totally.
yeah.
It's hard. I struggle because I want to like celebrate the people that took the time to write something nice, but then
Yeah.
like you have to go through like all of the bullshit too, and
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like
You can't unsee it. So it's just
no,
rather not see it in the first
I know
place.
it's tough. Like, is there something that you like practice
Mhm.
in your life to like, I guess, like not take that on? Like, because I think it can be
Yeah.
like very mentally heavy.
It is. And not so much, but I think like my approach right now is like I am doing something that not a lot of people are doing.
Hmm.
And if this is someone's first exposure point to it and they like need to comment about it, great.
Yeah,
That's the same as me putting it on the internet in some sort of twisted way. Like whether that comes back to them as something that they're gonna sit and reflect on at home, or they're like it's in their mind somewhere. It's a starting point to something. So I'm
totally.
like, I don't know. They put it out there for a reason. They needed it. They needed to get that out.
No,
That's on
it's a good
them. So
perspective.
it's one of those. Yeah, I don't have any good like I don't know mantras or point of view about it, but the negativity is gonna happen. So I just kind of like let it happen and then not. I also don't react to it
Yeah,
because that just like makes more, or people are
totally. You're like
entertained with
feeding
it.
energy into
Yeah, so
it.
I just kind of let it go and not let it like super impact my life.
No,
So
that's good. That's
yeah,
good.
no wisdom
That's
on that
okay.
one.
No, I mean, like, I feel like we're all on our own journey. I have to admit, like, this year has probably been the hardest year for me. And
Mm,
like, I feel like I'm struggling this year to really
yeah.
navigate it. And it's like, you know, it's just been like, I feel like it's like every time I do some sort of like partnership that's like pushed in any way,
Yeah.
it's just batshit crazy. Like
100%.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
I it makes you like, it's like there's been days where I'm like questioning, I'm like, is this what I want to do? Like, can I deal with that? And I think, when people like are like, oh, content creators, like they have it so easy, like it's such an easy job. It's like, okay, no,
Yeah.
like you also don't realize like all the other bullshit that comes with it that
Yeah.
is like very mentally taxing, too, right? Of just people think that you are just an open, it's like people, I feel like people treat you oftentimes like you don't have feelings or
Mhm.
emotions, and that they can just say whatever they want. And it's like, no, like we're also like people that have hearts and souls and feel things,
Yeah.
and it's really sad.
I think one of the big things too, and I can see it in a lot of comments, because they almost comment like it's someone else's stuff.
Yes,
Like they're like, this person is so blah blah blah. And I'm
totally.
like, Me? Like this
Yeah,
person is me. Like I'm
yeah,
what do you mean this
exactly.
person? Like who are we so it almost just feels like I think there's so many people who don't understand social media enough, which is kind of why I can let it
Yes,
go a little bit, where I'm like, they don't really see it as a person. And so like
totally.
I can't take like I think if they see me on the street, it'd be such a different interaction. But
Yes.
when I'm just like another video on another platform, they don't know
No,
if it's an ad, or they don't know if it's a person or like
totally.
a thing. So like I can understand at least, or like rationalize for myself of
Yeah,
like this truly like is not about like me is just about like the content on their phone. And
totally.
like, it's the same as if I get the same food ad six
Yes.
times in a row. I'm like, I'm never shopping at that grocery store again. So I'm like, oh, that's how it goes,
Yeah, absolutely. That's
So
a good point. I love it.
yeah.
So, just to wrap up,
Yeah.
where can people find you? Where are they going to see your content? Please let them know.
Yeah. Right now I guess like mostly on Instagram, TikTok. All my stuff is like Kyle from Insta is my main one,
Yes.
Kyle from TikTok, Kyle from YouTube, Kyle from whatever else.
Good
You can plug in
branding.
that. Thank you. I really race to those handles. So if you're on a website and you're like, I wonder if Kyle's on this platform, try it.
Definitely,
Kyle
you are
from
the
wherever you are.
Kyle.
So check me out there. That's my main stuff.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your openness today, and I
Yeah.
feel like I learned so much about you. So this was absolutely amazing. You are
Oh,
a gem of a human. So
oh,
thank you for your
of
time.
course. Thanks for doing what you're doing. I love this little coaching
Yeah.
conversation.